Hello and welcome back to Dice Throne Hero Spotlight, where we're looking at all of the heroes in Dice Throne. My name is Raven, and today we're continuing Season 2 with the Samurai. Now, the Samurai has a few ways to be increasing damage and also reducing the opponent's damage. Some ways to be preventing damage, some ways to be doing undefendable damage. There's a few different things that are happening here, so let's open the box and take a look. All right, this is the Samurai. We've got another passive ability happening here. A few different status effects, but not as many as the Gunslinger. But let's start over here looking at the dice. Again, just three different symbols. 1, 2, 3 is Katana, 4 and 5 is Kabuto, and 6 is Rising Sun. We start off here with Shame, a negative status effect that's unique to the Samurai. It has a stack limit of 2. And if you have Shame and you would be dealing damage as a result of your offensive roll phase, you remove this token and reduce the damage by 1. So this means that people are dealing less damage to us, which is always nice. Next we have an Honor, which is a positive status effect, again unique to the Samurai, with a stack limit of 2. You can spend 1 of these to increase your attack damage by 1, or you can spend 2 of them to increase your attack damage by 3. And again, that's an attack modifier. So this is just a way that we can be adding a little bit more to the damage that we're dealing, which is always nice. And then we have Backstrike, a positive status effect with a stack limit of 1. If you would take damage as a result of an opponent's offensive roll phase, you can choose to spend this token, and if you do, you roll a dice, and you do half that value back to the attacking player. So this is a way for us to do a little bit of extra damage on the defense, which is nice. So we've got a few different things happening there with the status effect. But let's start over here with our passive ability. So Bushido. If you are the first player of the game, gain Honor. And at the conclusion of your turn, if you used less than 3 rolls during your offensive roll phase, gain Honor. So this is an interesting thing. We don't have anything else that is cared about whether you are the first player or not. So that's an interesting thing to see there. And this is also caring about how many rolls we're using during our offensive roll phase. And it doesn't matter why you did less than 3 rolls, like maybe you were constricted by, had constrict on you or something like that, or barbed vine or something like that, that meant you had less than 3 rolls to use. But it doesn't matter, you still gain the Honor regardless, which is nice. So that's a way that we can be a little bit consistently dealing extra damage with each of our combats. All right, here we have our basic ability, Katana Slice. So 3 katanas is 5 damage, 4 is 6, and 5 is 7. Fairly standard amount of damage there. We've got an upgrade for 2 combat points, Katana Slice 2, 1 extra damage at each of those levels, and on 4 of a kind of a number, inflict shame. Then we've got Katana Slice 3 for 1 additional combat point. Instead here on 3 of a kind of numbers, inflict shame. As usual, it's just our basic ability. We probably don't want to be doing it most of the time, but it's there as a backup if we need it. Next we have Wakizashi, 2 katanas and 2 rising suns. Gain backstrike, then deal 3 undefendable damage. Undefendable damage is always nice. We love having it as an option. And that backstrike as some extra damage on defense is nice as well. We have an upgrade here for 1 combat point, doing 1 extra damage there, and a second upgrade for 1 additional combat point, which means we're also inflicting shame. So we've got some nice options there in terms of upgrades. Next we have Solemnity, 2 katana and 3 kabuto, inflict shame and deal 7 damage. That's a reasonable amount of damage. And inflicting shame is nice, and then as an upgrade for 2 combat points, we're inflicting 2 shame and dealing 8 damage, which is lovely. And then we also have this second ability, Solemn, which is just inflicting 2 shame with rolling 3 Kabuto. Generally speaking, you'd only be using this as a backup if you can't quite get that Solemnity. Next up, we have our small straight Budo. Gain honor, then deals 6 damage. That's fine. Because of that honor, that makes it 7 damage effectively, unless you can gain another honor, in which case that'll make it 9 damage, which is quite nice. We do have an upgrade for it for 2 combat points that puts it up to 8 damage, which is quite lovely. So that's going to be essentially 9 damage at the base if you're using that honor. And then we have Masamune, the large straight. Deal 7 damage and roll 4 dice. You add 1 damage for each katana. You inflict 1 shame for each kabuto. And if you roll a 6, you gain backstrike. That's quite nice, doing potentially up to 11 damage. You can be inflicting 2 shame. You can be gaining backstrike. Of course, if you roll multiple 6s, you kind of whiff because you can only gain backstrike once. If you roll more than 2 kabuto, that also won't work because shame has a stack limit of 2. So hopefully getting at least 2 katanas on this one, and only one of those 6s. But we do have an upgrade here for 2 combat points. The only difference here is you're rolling 5 dice instead of 4. The rest is the same, but we also have the option here of Empower, one of each symbol to gain backstrike. Again, as usual, it's nice to have the option there, but hopefully we will be able to do an actual attack most of the time. Now we have our 4/6s ability, Hagakure. Gain honor, gain backstrike, inflict 2 shame, then deal 5 undefendable damage. With that honor, that's probably going to be 6 undefendable damage, and we're reducing their next attack by 2, which is nice, and also gaining backstrike, which is lovely. We do have an upgrade for 2 combat points that makes it 7 undefendable damage, which is lovely. And then also we have Haga, which is gain honor, inflict 2 shame, then deal 2 undefendable damage. As a backup to our 4/6s, it's quite nice. You're still dealing undefendable damage there. You're still gaining the honor. You're still inflicting 2 shame. So it's still quite nice. Then we have our ultimate ability, Shogun. Gain honor, inflict 2 shame, then deal 13 damage. With that honor, that's going to become 14, maybe 16 if you already had one before that. So looking pretty good there. And of course, we also have our defense ability, Stand Tall. You've got 3 dice for this defense. You deal 1 damage for each katana. You prevent 1 damage for each kabuto. And on a 6, you prevent 2 damage. However, if you didn't roll any kabuto or rising sun, you gain shame, as in you shame yourself, which I love that little flavor text there. So dealing up to 3 damage back, preventing up to 4 damage if you get 2 kabuto and 1 rising sun then. But there is the potential for you to be shaming yourself, which is not ideal. We do have an upgrade here for 3 combat points, where you are rolling 4 dice instead of 3, and you have no way to shame yourself. So that is nice. We do also have some cards in the deck that are unique to the samurai. Starting off with the promo card, Kensei. For 0 combat points, you roll a dice. On a 6, you gain backstrike and 2 honor. On any other outcome, draw a card. That's fairly nice. Backstrike and 2 honor is quite lovely. That's just going to be 3 extra damage with that honor, and backstrike is 1 to 3 damage on defense. We love to see it. Honorable, 1 combat point, gain 2 honor. This is pretty good. Essentially, this is representing 3 damage with 1 combat point, which is fairly good rate for the most part. So this can be a good option if you're not able to get Bushido happening on that turn for whatever reason. We also have Shame on You. For 1 combat point, inflict 2 shame on chosen opponent. So essentially their next attack is going to be 2 less than what it was, which is nice. Then we have Don't Back Down. For 1 combat point, gain backstrike. And that's between 1 and 3 damage that you're essentially dealing back there. So not quite as much as you would for Honorable, so not quite as good as that, but still nice to have as an option. Then we have 2 roll phase cards. First we have Gishi, an attack modifier. You roll 1 dice. On a katana, add 2 damage. On a Kabuto, inflict 2 shame. And on Rising Sun, gain backstrike. All nice options. Being able to add more damage to our attack is always lovely. And yeah, these are all good options that we like to have. Then we also have Follow Through for 1 combat point. Roll 5 dice, add 1 damage for each katana you roll, and also inflict shame. So that's up to 5 extra damage, probably more like 2 or 3 damage, and then also inflicting shame on the opponent. So interesting player here, the Samurai, caring about the number of rolls that you're doing during your offensive roll phase. This is an interesting space to be working in. You've got a few ways to be increasing that damage, a couple of ways to be doing undefendable damage, and also reducing the opponent's damage, which is quite nice. But yeah, that's the Samurai. Alright, that was the Samurai. Like I was saying, some interesting ways to be increasing damage and also reducing the opponent's damage, something we don't really see much. And also caring about how many rolls you're doing during your offensive roll phase, which is an interesting sort of design space and an interesting play space as well. It means that you're going to be thinking about that in a different way to how you usually would with most other heroes. Not really any ways to be gaining combat points or drawing cards. So if those are some things that you really enjoy playing with, maybe a different hero is better for you. But this is a lower complexity hero, complexity 3, so it's good starting out one to be playing around with. But what do you think? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Have you had a chance to play with the Samurai or play against them? How did it go? What are your thoughts? Make sure you tune in next time when we have a look at the Tactician. But until then, see you later.